Hello again. Hope you had some fun playing around with variables and input. Maybe you wrote a program, asked your roommate or friend or patient family member, I don't know, to interact with what you wrote. It's always a little bit fun to see other people working with something that you made. So we've seen variables, we've seen strings, we've seen integers, we've seen floats, we've gotten input from users, but let's be honest, it's a little dry, right? It's not the most exciting thing that you've seen people do, probably at least with a computer. So what we're going to show you next is something called turtle graphics. And this is actually pretty cool. And just pretty fun. So we're going to use Turtle Graphics. What are we talking about? Turtle Graphics is a library in Python that basically lets you draw pictures easily. We're not talking about super fancy, but think Microsoft Paint. It actually originally came from a completely different programming language called Logo. But it's now been incorporated into Python because people found it to be a pretty useful teaching tool. So the first thing that we're going to do, let's just jump right in, is you create a turtle. So actually the very first thing you do is you tell Python, hey, I'm going to need you to go grab that special library of code that you wouldn't normally let me use, but now you're going to. So that import turtle statement at the top, import statements almost always, let's just go with always, go with the top of your code. And they basically tell Python what I said, hey, we're going to need some extra code that you have, but that you don't always make it available to people. So inside this file, I'm going to say import turtle. I'm going to save it. So this is a new file. Do not call this file turtle.py. That will completely break everything, as it turns out, and that's a mistake I made as I was trying to prepare for this lecture. So I am going to call it turtle draw. And I'm actually going to call it turtle underscore draw because underscores are just a Python-y thing to use. So all that this file says right now, as you can see, is import turtle. And if I go to run module, nothing happens. Well, something happened. The program ran. Python imported the turtle library. If you're not 100% sure what that means, just think of it as basically it went and fetched another book to use as reference. But since we didn't give it any other instructions, it said, alright, guess we're done, and then it closed the program. So that's not super interesting. So if we go back and look at the slides, we can see that I have a little bit more code there. That says we're going to create a turtle. So even if you don't know what it means to create a turtle, you should see something that looks kind of familiar. Tibby equals. Last time, in the last lecture, I said variable names go on the left, and then there's an equal sign. So what this is telling you is that Tibby is the name of the variable, and then whatever is on the right side of that equal sign is its value. Now, in this case, the value isn't something that you've seen before. It's not a string or an int or a float. It's this weird turtle thing. We're not going to get into what it means to be a turtle in any sense of that word. Basically, I'm just going to ask you to accept this, that this is how you need to start a program that uses a turtle, and just kind of go with it. The next line that I have says tibby.shape, and then there's parentheses and quotation marks, and then it says turtle. You don't have to include this, but I do think it's a little bit more fun if you do. So let me just show you what will happen here. Pull up the code. So I'm typing in Tibby equal, and of course you can name your turtle anything. This is one of those cases where, in fact, if you called it Pikachu, that would be totally fine. Kind of not a name I would go for a turtle. Probably go with, Squirtle, but whatever makes you happy. Tibby equals turtle. Just, again, accept that this is how you have to create a turtle. if you do nothing and just save the code like this and then run it, a new window will pop up, and all that's going to happen is that there's going to be a little thing in the middle that looks like an arrow. It's not going to do anything because you haven't given it any instructions. So when I said that that one bit of code was optional but more fun, the line that says tibi.shape and then turtle, let's put that in and then run the code again, and I'll show you why I thought that was more fun. So tibi.shape turtle. Save it, run it, and then when that window pops up again, apologies for what's happening right now. Every time I run the program, it reopens the window in a much bigger format than I actually want, and that's making my video recordings a little bit weird, but you can kind of see what's going on. What should have happened for you and what has happened for me is now inside of this window I have a turtle instead of just an arrow. I actually prefer this. The arrow's fine, but I like the turtle because later on we're going to actually get the turtle to do things, and it's actually really helpful to be able to see visually what direction the turtle is facing, and I find it much easier to identify the turtle's head than to figure out which part of the arrow is the one that is the directional one. Okay, it's not that hard, but turtles are just cooler, so we're going with turtle. So we have the turtle. We want to move the turtle because that's cool. So I'm not going to actually type this out and then run it because I'm having trouble with the screen popping up and kind of messing up the presentation, but this is what will happen, and that's why I have the screenshot. So if you give Tibi these instructions, so first we have tibi.forward 90. So you'll notice we keep having this same format where you have the name of the turtle, a dot, and then some kind of what looks like an instruction, right? I mean, again, you don't need to be a super amazing programmer to guess that, well, Tibi's probably about to move forward in some way. And then we have the parentheses and the number 90. So what that means is that Tibi is going to move forward 90 pixels. So that's basically what happens here. So you can't see this, but Tibi starts here in this little central point and moves forward 90. So that's how we ended up kind of at the end of this, the rightmost end of that line. Next instruction is tibi.backward 300, so you can guess that Tibi then moves back those 90 pixels that she moved forward first, and then back another 210, so ended up here. And then I have these two go-to instructions, and basically that tells Tibi, go to these specific coordinates on what is essentially actually a grid. You can't see the grid lines, but it is a grid. So first I say, hey Tibi, go to 0, 0. So that's the starting place, which is actually right in the center. And then I say go to minus 400, 400, and that's when Tibi goes all the way up, so back 400, and then over 400 and up 400, but like on that diagonal. So, you know, we've got forward and backward. It's important to remember forward and backward. Always move the turtle in relation to where the turtle currently is and how the turtle is currently facing. So that's why I mentioned before it's useful to know where the head is, because, you know, seeing the direction that the head is pointing will tell you which way is forward and which way is backwards. And then go to will just go the shortest way to get to whatever coordinates you give it. And just remember the 0, 0 is the center of the screen. So we can turn the turtle. So tibi.right will turn the turtle 90 degrees to the right from the direction that it's facing. So it's not gonna, you know, make it always face one particular way. Wherever the turtle's starting off at, 90 degrees to its right. Not necessarily your right, the turtle's right, so you might want to think about it as being clockwise instead. And then tibi.left, like for example 45, will be 45 degrees to the left or counterclockwise. So we can do something like this, make a shape. So if we start off with no other code, so if you comment out the stuff that you had in there before from the previous slides, assuming that you're following along or as you go back through, tibi.forward 100, so if we start off in the center, go forward and then right and then forward and then right and then do that 4 times, what kind of a shape do you get? It's a square. So just showing you an easy way to make a fairly simple shape. You could make it a rectangle by making some of the sides longer than the others. You could, make a triangle by removing different sides and having it turn 60 degrees and, moving around or however many degrees you want for your triangle. And one thing that I want you to try as you go back through is so run that code, have TB make a square, but then see what happens if you turn TB to the right by 45 degrees first and then run the rest of these instructions. And I think that doing that will help you get a sense of what I mean when I say the turtle's always moving relative to its own direction. There's another thing we can do. So previously in the slides we had that print statement, and that's fun, but if you use a print statement here, you can't do tb.print. That doesn't work. Turtle doesn't know how to print. That's crazy, but turtles do know how to write, apparently. So you can do things like tb.write and then give it a string to write. And yes, you could give it a variable if you had previously defined a variable. That will definitely work too. So what I have here, tb.write hello, that'll just write hello in whatever default font. If you want to get a little fancier, you can set the font. You can set whatever font you want, make sure that's in quotes, set the size, and then instead of normal, I think you can do things like bold or italic or stuff like that. And it's built in, so you don't need to tell Python what those things are, but it can be a nice way to just, see some different things. Depending on what operating system you're on, you might get an error message if you try and use Times here, so you might have to try Times New Roman or just use the name of another font that is on your computer. If you're not sure what fonts are on your computer, you can open up Word and see what the list is and pick one of those. You can also change the color. This is a little bit simpler than the whole font thing, so this might appeal more. So you can do things like tb.color and then give it the name of a color. You can also give it HTML color codes, but I'm just using the words here because it's fits better on the slide. Honestly, that's a big part of it. So things are predefined, but if you go to this link, you can find a huge list of predefined colors, and they include all kinds of things like, dark cyan, and I don't remember all of them, but there's a lot of different color options, so you can have some fun with that too. One thing that you have probably noticed is that every time the turtle moves, it draws the line behind it, right? So when you tell it to go to a particular location, wherever it was before, it draws a line as it goes there. You don't always want it to do that, right? Sometimes you want it to go to a place so you can start something new or write something, but you don't want to just have a trail behind the turtle. So you can have that set up by using pen up and pen down. So if you tb.pen up, all lowercase, that will basically lift the pen from the paper, metaphorically. So then you can tell TB to go wherever TB needs to go to get to the right location, and then when TB's in the correct spot, you say tb.pen down, and then you can start drawing again. So yeah, basically again for practice, all I want you to do is go through these slides, type some stuff out, make sure it all works, play around with it if you want to, have a little bit of fun. This is a neat, fun thing, I just taught you how to draw with a turtle in a programming language called Python. That's pretty neat. So do put in comments, do save this code somewhere that you can get back to it. Because the assignment for this week is asking you to draw some stuff, and part of the assignment is asking you to draw some stuff with the turtle, and having code that you can start from that works and then modify to do what you want it to do is so much easier than starting from scratch. And I'm giving you this code so that you can do that. Studies have shown that it's easier to learn how to code if you look at code that is good and that works and you modify it and learn that way, because that way you can internalize the best way to do things, the correct way to do things, instead of just, banging your head against a wall because you forgot to close your quotes. So yeah, just go, play around with this, have some fun. It's a neat thing to do, and enjoy. All right, bye.